Banali. You are a Delhi based professional specializing in strategic communications and PR with 20 plus years of diverse and multi sectoral experience in leadership positions. Your core competences in public policy, program, and advocacy with domain expertise in rights based sustainable development of the marginalized, especially empowerment of women and children. This makes your voice especially important for this conversation. In the course of your diversified career, you have worked with the government, global and national NGOs, media organizations, and the corporate sector. And at this point, you are the head of corporate communications with Uber India and South Asia, where you partner closely with your global and regional public policy colleagues to promote, manage, and enhance the overall reputation of Uber in these markets. If I was to ask you to just choose about like three words that capture your essence, what would those three words be?
I think I'm a people's person, love being
Mm-hmm,
with people, and also at the same time being with nature. So that
mm-hmm.
really gives me a lot of peace and also helps me. I think I'm speaking too many words. You can ask for three words. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
So, what would be the third word? So, you've said you're people's person, like you love making friends, and the second one is nature. So, you love nature. What would the third place be?
I think I personally really resonate with women's issues and children's issues, and I always find no matter what I do, I seem to find connections. I was a very boisterous kid, I used to um, go out and fight if anybody tried bullying me. I would be really angry and I would fight it out. And I had lots of friends. I used to play a lot of, like those things like kabaddi and gilli danda and things like that. So I was very fond of kabaddi, and I used to be out mucking around for very long outside playing kabaddi with neighborhood children. So it was fun. I grew up in a small place in Assam. It was a small town back then. It's Bongaigaon in Assam. And now, of course, it's a district headquarter. It wasn't in back in those days. I studied in an Assamese medium school in Assam, government school, and I didn't know how to speak in English back then. I learned only after coming to Delhi. And what else? I think I had a very sort of protected childhood, and then later on my education, my experience, and my exposure to all the work I did in women's safety, children's safety, etc. I was fully aware and cognizant of the harm that can come my child's way, and no parent can protect a child 24/7.
Hmm.
From childhood, from the time he was like, I think 3 years old or 4 years old, we started teaching him. So we taught him my number, my phone number, mobile number, and my husband's mobile number. And we taught him that no one against your wishes, not even us, your parents, can touch you without your consent, any part of your body. And it sort of got ingrained in him. And even if I have to touch you or give him a bath, I would always say, Carlos, is it okay to give you a bath? I will do this. And he says, he would basically, he's a child, and he would say, of course. So it got ingrained in him from his childhood. And in fact, so much so, Smita, I remember when I had taken him to a very well renowned pediatrician, that he's the area where I come from, he's very well known. And I took my child, and this doctor had to examine him, investigate. So basically, without his consent or any giving him any sort of giving him even 2 seconds time or space to prepare himself, he continued to do what the doctor does, and basically take off his clothes to examine him. And my son was so angry, and he was like, how could he have done that without asking me? I would have asked him, allowed him to take my clothes off if he has to examine me. But how could he have done it without asking me? So, that's the way I have raised my son. And I know when you are an aware parent, or, of child sexual abuse happening around you all the time, you just prepare the young people around you, your children. And if you are young adult, there are other nephews and nieces around you, you are more aware and sensitive towards such a thing happening. But if you're blissfully unaware, then I think we do no justice to children and giving them a safe space, which it's their right to have. A child deserves, he or she has a right to be safe in that space. Yeah,
So
yeah.
if I were to ask you that you suspected that there is child sexual abuse happening, suspected,
Hmm.
what would be your action? Would you talk to the suspected abuser or would you talk to the child? And what would you say to either of them?
My first response would be to make the child feel very, very, very safe, and find out what happened, and then who did what, basically. And then sort of approach the other question: how do you deal with this? Depending on who this person is, what is the level of harm this person has caused, depending on that, I think, not that I'm saying any of it is tolerable,
Mm,
but if removing that person from the scenario can solve the problem, then, depending on what is the situation, then I think I would do that. But if it is something that is, absolutely not acceptable, then I would go to the police and I would lodge a complaint against this person, and let law take its course and investigate the matter and do. But definitely, the first thing would be remove all connections with that person the child has, and make the child feel safe. So you decouple the two, basically, so that the child is psychologically feel safe that, okay, this person cannot harm me anymore. My parents have taken care of this, and I will never be thrown into the same situation again to face that person again. So that would be, making the child feel safe will be my first priority, and then
brilliant.
dealing with perpetrator, and how to deal with that person. And probably, if I think, I would speak to a counselor, and figure out what needs to be done. Yeah, mostly safe, except there have been times when I have faced child sexual abuse. And I remember the first time it had happened, I think I was just 5 or 6 years old, Smita. And they were some guys in our were living in our house as tenants. So they made me do stuff. It was not systemic though, and it was, I think, once or twice. And then later on, again, as a 9-year-old, we had, my mom is a working woman. She retired as a college principal. So academics was like, all middle class home. Academic is the most important thing when we were growing up, me and my brother, my younger brother. So we had a private tutor at home. So this private tutor used to, touch me inappropriately, and I was just like, 10 years old or something, and I didn't know what was happening. I didn't have the language to actually uh, say stop, or do something. So I would basically sit in a way that he can't reach out and touch me. So, and this was going on in front of my brother. So I did whatever I could to protect myself. That's the best thing I could do at that point, but it was systemic. It went on for some time. But as a child, as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, or 9 or 10-year-old, you don't know. I didn't know how to, talk about it, communicate about it, or even tell my parents, something like this was going on. I couldn't. In fact, I told my mother very recently, like 2 months back, about what this private tutor was doing to me. My mother was shocked, of course, and she was like, her first reaction was, "Why didn't you tell me?" And I could have done something at that point. I said, "I just didn't know." And that point, that private tutor was actually a very famous private tutor. So I have lived with anger, basically, anger with myself and also with the guy. Why couldn't I have spoken about it? And also against him, this person. A 5-year-old, a 6-year-old. God, my heart breaks for my own 5-year-old self. I was a very boisterous child, and I was active. I was physically active. But did that prevent you from getting abused? No. I have spoken over the years to so many of my colleagues, men and women, and they have all admitted. I mean, it's not easy for anyone to come out and say, yes, it has happened to me. But yes, colleagues have told me I have survived this. And if you share your story, then, you sort of, enable others also to talk about their personal journeys and, stuff that they have undergone. What you are doing with this project and how important it is to make our children safer in whatever space they may be, maybe school, maybe an extracurricular activity, maybe a painting class or a music class, wherever children are. It's just so important for children to be aware of it and adults around them to be aware of it. My home, my husband. Safe space for everyone around me. Turned on with the right person. Safe space is when your child can talk to you about anything under the sun without ever feeling any kind of hesitation and, stopping, holding themselves back. That, if I say this, what will be the repercussions? Will my mom be angry? Will my dad be angry? Will I get, punished or admonished for saying such a thing? If you are able to give a space like that to your child, I think your job is done. And no matter what the child goes through, good, bad, ugly, the child will come and tell you. That channel of communication needs to be open all the time, at all times. You have to be equal in the sense that everybody has a mind of their own, and you have to respect that. And that to me is an equal space where you are not treating someone as an inferior person, and you respect the agency the other person has. Even if it is a child, the child has an agency. The moment you deny that, you deny that child, equality. The harsher your punishment is, the likelihood of a rape victim survive or even living to tell a tale is just not there. People would kill the woman to actually stop ever being told. If the punishment was, harshest punishment was to save a woman from a rape, then they would be killed. They would not live to tell a tale. And that is no way. You have to believe in restorative justice. You have to believe in, the rape culture needs to be killed. Rape culture needs to be removed, and not the perpetrators. The kind of circumstances that they have come from, all the signals they absorb as they grow up, women being inferior, women being second rate citizens, women not having agency, women having to punish. If they wear this, they need to be, taught a lesson. So is that the way to remove rape from our society? There are so many levels, through so many ways we are telling men that no, tomorrow if somebody is wearing a bikini and a celeb in a bikini gets trolled for wearing a bikini, but she's in a swimming pool, wearing a bikini, what else do you expect her to wear? Men are wearing swimming trunks. Do they get trolled for that? So how
So
is
this
it
whole,
punishment, harsh punishment, remove the crime?
yeah, how does the harsh punishment take care of this culture of entitlement that we have? You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant, excellent. Because that's one of the biggest issues, especially if you're talking about child sexual abuse within the families or within the trusted circles that we're talking about. Where does law come in, and what role can law play over there? Is a big question, isn't it?
Absolutely. I can, because if there are cases where a father is sexually abusing a daughter, how do you bring in the law into the picture? The father might be the sole, bread earner of the family. If you punish this father and put him in jail, what kind of a situation is the family going to be in? These are very, very difficult questions. There are no easy answers.
There are no easy answers,
No, there are
absolutely.
no easy answers. There are no easy answers. The deeper you look into it, and the deeper the case studies that you look into, and different scenarios that you go into, there are just no easy answers. There are just many, many at many different levels. You will have to approach this basically. For me, it's a very wide spectrum, Smita. Uh, the abuse would be anything the child asks to do something that the child is absolutely, it's not part of his or her natural activities. Anything that the child is uncomfortable to do, to something being done to the child, there is a whole range. And it has nothing to do with just the private parts of the child or the other person. Even if you're a girl, prepubescent girl, breast being stroked is something that I have undergone, that is not tolerable. Or something to be asked to do to another person, nothing. I mean, there can be a whole range. There is no limit to it. Not shutting up children and say that, okay, you don't know any better. And listen, pay attention. If your child is trying to say something, maybe not articulating well enough, but pay attention to what the child is saying, and watch for body language. And is the child afraid? Is the child going through something? Because any parent would know and see the signs if you pay attention. I know we all live busy lives, but as parents, we owe it to our children to pay attention and listen to what they're trying to say. And if you do that, you will know if there is something which is out of the ordinary. If I was that elder sister, the first thing I will do is basically share this with my parents and make sure that my younger brother, I do have a younger brother actually, is not left with that chachu ever again alone, and do everything in my capacity to prevent them from that from happening. If I was
Brilliant.
that young girl, leave alone my information about law and how to deal with all of that, leave aside, I would make sure that my brother is never with that chachu ever again alone. And then rely on my parent also to basically, I think, make the chachu understand, or as a child, I think you would want that he needs to be admonished because children are scolded. I would probably, if I was that little girl, I would want that chachu to be scolded and ask, you don't do that again. Something like that. So I'm completely placing myself in that elder sister Didi's shoes and thinking this is how I would deal with this. I would throw a lot of I would do everything in my capacity to never let the brother in law come near the child again. and know exactly what he did, what he has been up to, and if need be, go to police, because the film doesn't actually reveal the details of what's the kind of harm or abuse that Chachu has been doing. So I would definitely do everything possible to not let him come near me. And like I said, I don't particularly believe that taking him to the police and getting him punished is going to solve the problem. But that kind of a person should be told, counseled, informed what he's been doing is wrong. Figure out if he has done this to any other child in the family. That family might have other children also. Other children are also going to the Chachu. If he's the particularly popular Chachu giving toffees and chocolates to little children, I want to find out more what he's been up to with other children. So basically go into the depth of the situation and figure out he should be told what he's up to, and that is wrong. And someone should sit him down and tell him what is absolutely wrong and not tolerable. It's actually that it's a punishable offense by the law. This should be a topic of conversation, taught to children in school, as many schools as possible. Children, one thing is parents enabling children at home, and the other thing is that because children spend so much time in schools, for me a tangible goal would be to have this included in NCRT textbooks, or state boards, including it as a subject that teachers teach children, and very early on in life, and tell children that this is not done, even if, because so many children get abused at school by teachers. So this needs to be included in schools curriculums at very early, so that children are aware of how to deal with this. Children have the language to talk about it. Children are informed, are equipped to deal with this. Is for me a tangible sort of matrix, if you call it like a success
Yeah.
matrix.
Yeah.
And of course, young people who, if you equip children, children are going to grow up and they will become young adults. They are going to go become parents themselves. So like I have survived. So I, as a young adult, I knew about this. So I made sure my child doesn't have to go through something like this. So it needs to just have a ripple effect. And generation after generation should just talk about it and just prevent it from happening. I wish Sakshi all the very best for talking about this issue and doing such amazing work, empowering young adults to fight this battle.
Thank you so much. And I'm not going to do my really nice long spiel at the end, but thank you so much for joining us on this session on Safe Spaces. As you're aware, this is a campaign we are running from SBOX for the Rakshin Project by Sakshi to build a world free of child sexual abuse, specifically within the families. And this is in partnership with the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports Directorate of NSS. The Rakshin Project is skill building 18 to 22-year-olds, young adults in higher education institutes to recognize, identify, address, de-escalate, report, and resolve sexual violence in their families and communities. And this campaign is to make visible the fact that 90% of child sexual abuse takes place within trusted circles and yet is severely underreported. So, what can the law do if the crime is not reported? Pranali, your voice and your support is so critical to amplify the work that we are doing to give visibility to why child sexual abuse does not get reported, what to do if it does not get reported, what is the role of the family and the bystanders. I also want to very quickly share that we are completely grant, donation, fund dependent to carry on the work. And at this point of time, we have an ongoing crowdfunding campaign with Give India, and every 1,000 rupees goes towards skill building one young adult. And ever since March 2020 till date, we have been able to reach out to almost 12,500 students in almost all the states. I welcome you to the world of Rakshans, that is, all of us who are committed to preventing harm. Would you call yourself a Rakshan, Banali?
You absolutely count me in. I am your I mean, I'd be very happy to advocate for this, and if you consider me to be a Rakshan, I'll be very happy to. And let me know how I can support and contribute. And I'm on your side and in your corner, supporting you, Smita.
Thank you, Banali. So let's just say I'm a Rakshan.
I'm a Rakshan.
Thank you so much for this, Banali. Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a very, very, very good evening.
You too. Bye. Thank you so much.
Right.
Bye.
Bye bye.